The cab pulled up to my house on Magnolia Terrace at 11:14 in the morning. I know the time because I checked my phone right before the driver helped me out of the back seat. I'd had my right hip replaced 2 days before at the hospital. I had a walker, a prescription, discharge papers, and a care plan that I had spent 2 months putting together. The front door was unlocked. I had given the home care agency a key for exactly this moment. I pushed it open and stepped inside. The house was empty, not just empty of people, empty of everything that was supposed to be there. The hospital bed I had rented for the living room, gone. The grab bars that had been installed in the bathroom, removed. The welcome package from Happy Path Home Care, the folder with my medication schedule, and the nurse's name gone from the kitchen counter. I stood in my own front hallway, holding a walker, 2 days out of surgery, and my house looked like no one had been expecting me at all. My phone buzzed in my cardigan pocket. I pulled it out. A text from my brother Kent. Pack your bags. No single woman your age keeps a house this big. It's time. I read it once. Then I read it again. I did not cry. I lowered myself carefully onto the bottom step of my staircase, set the walker to the side, and I called one number. What happened in the next 60 minutes? I want you to stay right here because I'm going to tell you every single detail. And by the end of it, you are going to understand something important about what it means to build a life that no one can take from you. Before I take you back to that morning, I need to stop right here. If this story is already hitting somewhere close, if you have a person in your life who has been quietly waiting for you to need something so they can take it, drop the words, "I see you, Sharon," in the comments right now. I read every single one. And if this is your first time here, this channel is for women like us. Real women, real situations, real strength. Hit subscribe if you believe that a woman over 60 still has options, still has power, and still has a voice. Now, let me tell you who I am, because it matters for this story. My name is Sharon Johnson. I am 67 years old. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina, in a 3-bedroom house on Magnolia Terrace that I bought with my own money 22 years ago. I am not married. I have never been married. And I want to say this plainly, that was not a failure. That was a choice. I spent 31 years as a licensed occupational therapist. I helped people relearn how to button their shirts after strokes. I helped veterans regain the use of their hands. I taught elderly patients how to stay safe in their own homes so they would not have to leave them before they were ready. I know more about independent living than most people will ever need to know. I also know more than most people exactly what it costs a person when that independence is taken away. I have no children. I have my community. I have my church. I have my friends. I have a garden in the backyard that I tend every spring and a porch where I drink my coffee every morning while the neighborhood wakes up around me. I have built a full life on my own terms. At 67 years old, my brother Kent has never believed that was possible. And for most of my life, I let that be his problem. Until the morning, he made it mine. Kent is 5 years older than me, 72 years old, retired real estate broker, married for 40 years to a woman named Pamela, who has never, in all the time I have known her, said a single kind thing about my life without following it with a, "But your house is lovely, but it's awfully big for one person. Your career sounds so rewarding, but didn't you ever want a family? You look wonderful for your age, Sharon, but are you sure you should be living alone?" Kent took his cues from Pamela, the way a dog takes cues from its owner, immediately and without question. Whatever Pamela thought about my life, Kent repeated back to me, usually at Thanksgiving, usually after the second glass of wine, and always with that particular smile that men wear when they think they are being helpful and are being the exact opposite. When I bought my house in 2003, Kent told me it was too much house for a single woman. When I turned down the one serious relationship I had in my 50s, Kent called me to say he was concerned I was going to end up alone. When I retired at 64 on my own schedule, with my own pension and my own savings, Kent sat across from me at Christmas dinner and said, Sharon, you should really think about what happens if something goes wrong. I looked at him and I said, I always do, Kent. That's why I plan ahead. He didn't like that. Ken has spent most of his adult life believing that the natural order of things is for women to be managed by husbands, by family, by someone who has decided they know better. He is not a cruel man in the dramatic sense. He doesn't shout. He doesn't threaten. He waits. He plants seeds of doubt. He positions himself as the reasonable one, the responsible one, the one who is just asking the hard questions. And because he waited long enough, and because I was good at managing my own life, I made the mistake of thinking he was harmless. I was wrong about that. The thing about people who are quietly controlling is that they don't show you what they're capable of until you are at your most vulnerable. Kent had been waiting for his moment for 30 years. My hip surgery, was it? Now, I want to pause here because I know some of you are nodding. You know a Kent. Maybe he lives down the street. Maybe he's at your family dinners. Maybe he calls you every few weeks with just enough concern in his voice to make you question yourself. If that's you, stay right here, because what I did next, I did for both of us. I had been dealing with hip pain for 2 years. Bone on bone, my orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Patricia Nguyen, told me. At 67, I was in good health otherwise, no major conditions, good blood work, a woman who walked her neighborhood every morning for the better part of a decade. Dr. Nguyen said the surgery was textbook, and my recovery would be strong if I followed the plan. I followed the plan, because that is what I do. 8 weeks before the surgery date, I researched in-home care agencies in Raleigh. I interviewed 3 of them. I chose Happy Path Home Care because they had the best certified nursing assistant ratings in Wake County, and because their intake coordinator, a woman named Melissa, answered every single one of my questions without making me feel like I was being difficult. I paid the deposit. I confirmed the start date. Melissa told me to have the house key ready and that a nurse and a CNA would be at my home by 10 a.m. on the day of my discharge. I also arranged for a rental hospital bed to be delivered to my living room the day before surgery. I had grab bars installed in my main bathroom. I knew exactly where they needed to go. 31 years of occupational therapy practice. I told 3 people about the surgery beyond my medical team. My neighbor Dolores Mitchell. She's 71, a retired school teacher, and has lived 3 houses down from me for 18 years. My friend Renee Campbell. We worked together at the rehab center for 12 years before she retired. And Beverly Miller, who coordinates the senior care circle at my church, Cornerstone Baptist. I told Kent because he is my only sibling and because my mother, God rest her, would have wanted me to. I gave him the date. I gave him the name of the hospital. I did not give him any authority over anything because there was nothing to give. I was not incapacitated. I had a medical power of attorney assigned to Renee, signed, notarized, filed with the hospital, all taken care of months before Kent even knew I was scheduled for anything. Kent called me the week before the surgery. His voice had that careful, managed quality I had known my whole life. You should really let family handle this, Sharon. You don't need strangers in your house. Happy Path isn't strangers. I said, they're professionals, and it's already arranged. A pause. Then, Pamela and I have been talking, and we think it makes more sense for you to come stay with us after, just for a few weeks. I want you to understand something about that offer. Pamela and Kent live in Greensboro, 45 minutes from my home, my doctors, my pharmacy, my neighbors, my church, and my garden. Staying with them was not recovery. It was relocation. It was the beginning of something that would never end. I appreciate that. I told Kent, but I have it handled. He didn't argue. He just got quiet in the way people get quiet when they have already decided on a different plan. I went into surgery on a Tuesday morning at 7 a.m. I was under anesthesia for 2 hours and 40 minutes. I did not know what Kent was doing during those 2 hours. But I found out later, every detail. At 8:30 in the morning, while I was on the operating table at the hospital, my brother Kent called Happy Path Home Care. He told Melissa that he was my next of kin. He told her I had changed my mind about in-home care and that the family would be taking over. He told her to cancel my service, effective immediately, and to credit back the remaining balance to the card on file. Melissa asked if she could verify this with me directly. Kent told her I was in surgery and unavailable, and that calling me would be inappropriate under the circumstances. Melissa, following their cancellation protocol, which I only learned about afterward, canceled the service and sent a confirmation email to the address Kent provided. Not mine. I want you to sit with that for a moment. One phone call. That is all it took. One person claiming to speak for me, while I was unable to speak for myself, and 2 months of planning evaporated. But he wasn't finished. At 9 a.m., Kent called my neighbor Dolores. He told her I had decided to go stay with family during recovery, and that she should not be alarmed if she saw people at the house removing equipment. He told her the hospital bed and grab bars were being picked up that morning. Dolores, who is one of the most decent human beings I have ever known, believed him. She had no reason not to. He was my brother. He sounded calm and authoritative and certain, the way people who are lying often do when they have rehearsed it. By 10 a.m., a man Kent had hired removed the grab bars from my bathroom. He also took the rental hospital bed back to the medical supply company. Kent had called them too. Same story. Family handling it. By 11 a.m., my home had been stripped of everything that had been set up to keep me safe. At 11:14 a.m., I stepped through my front door. I have been an occupational therapist for 31 years. I have helped hundreds of people navigate exactly this kind of situation, the sudden removal of support, the disorientation of coming home to something that no longer looks like home. I have held the hands of women who were not prepared for this moment. I was prepared, not because I knew Kent would do this, but because I had learned in 3 decades of this work that the only preparation that matters is the kind you build before you need it. I sat on that bottom stair and I pulled out my phone and I made the one call that changed everything. I called Renee. Renee Campbell is 64 years old. We worked side by side at North Carolina Rehab Center for 12 years. Before she retired, she was a licensed clinical social worker who specialized in elder advocacy. She has spent her career fighting for people in exactly my situation. She is also simply one of the sharpest, most organized women I have ever met in my life. She picked up on the second ring. "Sharon, you're home already?" "I'm home," I said. "The care is canceled. The bed is gone. The grab bars are gone." Kent called Happy Path this morning while I was in surgery. 3 seconds of silence. The kind that happens when someone is thinking very fast. "Don't move," she said. "Don't touch anything. Sit exactly where you are. I am on my way, and I am making some calls first." She hung up. Now, I want you to understand something about what happened next. I did not call Renee expecting her to fix everything. I called her because she was the person I trusted to help me think clearly when I was in pain, in shock, and sitting on a staircase with a 2-day-old hip replacement. What I did not expect was what she did in the next 15 minutes. Renee called Beverly Miller first. Beverly is the Senior Care Circle Coordinator at Cornerstone Baptist Church. She is 63 years old, a retired hospital administrator, and she runs our church's senior support network like a general runs an army. Organized, efficient, relentless about making sure no one in her community goes without. Renee told her what happened in about 45 seconds flat. Beverly sent one group text to the senior care circle. It read, "Sister Sharon Johnson is home from surgery. She needs us today. If you can come to Magnolia Terrace, come now." That was the whole message. Then Renee called Gloria Watkins. Gloria is 69 years old, retired registered nurse, 35 years at Duke University Hospital. She and I have known each other through church for 15 years. Gloria is the kind of woman who shows up to emergencies with both a plan and a casserole dish, and she knows exactly what she's doing in both cases. I'll call Happy Path myself. Gloria told Renee, "I know how these agencies work. We'll figure out what authority he actually had." Then she started making a list. I sat on my staircase. Outside, my street was quiet. A mockingbird was going through its whole repertoire in the oak tree by the driveway. I could hear it through the door I had left slightly open. My hip hurt. My house was empty. My brother had done exactly what he had always wanted to do. He had stepped in and taken over while I was incapacitated and could not stop him. But here is the thing Kent did not understand about my life. He knew I had no husband. He knew I had no children. He had decided, in the logic of a man who had never understood independence, that this made me helpless. He did not know about Renee. He did not know about Beverly. He did not know about Gloria or Dolores or the 47 women in the senior care circle at Cornerstone Baptist or the neighbors on Magnolia Terrace who had watched me come home from 30 years of work and build something real and were not interested in watching it be dismantled. He knew my family tree. He didn't know my roots. Dolores was the first to arrive. She knocked and pushed the door open. She still had my key from watering my plants while I was in the hospital. And she came in already apologizing. "Sharon, I didn't know. I swear to God." He called me and sounded so sure of himself. "And Sharon, I'm so sorry." She had tears in her eyes. "Dolores," I said, "he fooled you because he meant to. That is not on you. It is on him." She squeezed my hand and went straight to the kitchen. I heard the refrigerator open. Then the cabinets. "I'm making you something to eat," she called out. "Don't argue with me." I did not argue. Gloria arrived 12 minutes later. She walked in with a tote bag over one shoulder and her reading glasses on top of her head, which is how she looks when she is in work mode. She assessed my situation in about 30 seconds. The way nurses do, that quick clinical sweep that takes in everything at once. "Okay," she said. "Here is what we are going to do." She pulled a notepad from her bag and started writing while she talked. "I am calling Happy Path the moment their office opens this afternoon. I have spoken to their director before. What your brother did was not legally authorized. You had no next of kin designation on file, and your medical power of attorney was assigned to Renee, not him. They are going to hear from me about that." She looked up. "In the meantime, I am your nurse. Today and for as long as you need." I had to look at the ceiling for a moment. 31 years of telling other people they didn't have to go through things alone. And here I was learning it all over again from the other side. Renee arrived at noon with her car loaded. She had stopped at the medical supply store on the way. New grab bars, installed within the hour by her husband James, a retired contractor who didn't say much but measured twice and drilled once. She had also brought a raised toilet seat, a shower chair, and a long-handled grabber. The hospital bed rental company has a new one coming Thursday. Renee told me, setting a folder on the kitchen table. Gloria got them on the phone. In the meantime, we have a recliner coming from the Hendersons down the street. It's the kind that lifts. You'll sleep in the living room until the bed arrives. I looked at the folder. It had tabs. Renee had tabbed it. I started to say something and couldn't. "Don't," she said. "Just let us help you." By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, 5 women from the senior care circle were in my home. Caroline Brooks, who is 68 and runs the church kitchen, had brought a full pot of chicken and rice soup. Margaret Ellis, 71, a retired pharmacist, had sat down with my discharge papers and organized my medication schedule onto a chart she printed from her phone. Louise Tatum, 66, had brought fresh sheets and made up the recliner like a bed, crisp, neat, a real pillow. Theodore Jameson arrived at 1:30. He is 69, a deacon at Cornerstone, a man of maybe 6 words on a talkative day. He walked through my front door carrying his own toolkit, looked at the bare wall in the bathroom where my grab bars had been, shook his head in that slow, deliberate way of his, and spent the next 2 hours reinstalling everything. Better than it had been before. 3 anchor points instead of 2. By 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 12 people were in and out of my home. By 4 o'clock, there were more. Word travels the way it travels in tight communities. Someone who had gotten Beverly's text had forwarded it to their own circle. A woman named Patricia Lawson, who had been my patient 18 years ago after her stroke, showed up at my door with her daughter. "You taught me how to get dressed again with one arm," Patricia said. "You think I wasn't coming?" 3 of my former colleagues from North Carolina rehab arrived together. They had seen a message in their old work group chat and driven straight over. A man named Arthur Green, who lived 2 blocks away and whose late wife had been in my care circle at church, came by with his son to carry in the lift recliner from the Hendersons. By the time the sun started going down on Magnolia Terrace, I had counted, and I want you to hear this number clearly, over 200 people who had come through my door, sent food, arranged for equipment, or called to say they were coming tomorrow. 200 people. None of them were my family. All of them were my family. Gloria set a care schedule, 7 days a week, 2-hour morning shifts and 2-hour evening shifts, rotating among 12 volunteers, all of them either retired medical professionals or people with caregiving experience. She presented it to me like a report, typed, formatted, everyone's contact information on the back page. "This is a 60-day plan," Gloria told me. "Enough for full recovery. After that, you won't need us, but we'll still come for coffee." I was sitting in the lift recliner by then, my bad hip elevated, a bowl of Caroline's soup in my lap, the smell of something baking coming from my kitchen. The house that had been stripped and silenced by my brother's one phone call that morning was full again, full of voices, full of light, full of the particular kind of noise that happens when people who care about each other are in the same room. At 6 o'clock that evening, my phone buzzed again. A text from Kent. "Have you thought about what I said? Pamela has your room ready." I showed it to Renee. She read it, looked up at the room full of people around us, and set the phone face down on the table. "He has no idea," she said. "I didn't respond to Kent that night. I ate my soup. I took my medication on Margaret's perfect schedule. I went to sleep in that recliner, in my own home, with Renee, in the guest room down the hall, and I slept better than I had in weeks. I let 3 days pass. I needed 3 days to be steady enough, in body and in mind, to do what needed to be done. In those 3 days, Gloria confirmed with Happy Path Home Care's director that Kent had had absolutely no legal authority to cancel my service. He had lied. He had impersonated an authorized representative. Happy Path's director, a woman named Angela Powell, was mortified. She apologized personally and reinstated my service at no additional charge. She also updated their intake policy to require documented authorization before accepting any cancellation from a third party. What your brother did, Angela Powell told Gloria, should not have been possible under our protocols. It will not happen again to any of our clients. On day 4, Renee drove me to meet with an elder law attorney named Howard Mitchell. His office was 20 minutes from my house, and he was recommended by 2 people I trusted. I brought everything: the Happy Path cancellation confirmation, the text from Kent, my discharge papers, the documentation of the grab bar removal. Howard Mitchell reviewed it for 40 minutes. Then he looked up. You have grounds for a harassment complaint and potentially a civil claim, he said. More immediately, we can send a certified letter to your brother that documents this incident and makes clear that any further interference in your medical care or personal affairs will have legal consequences. I'd like to do that, I said. The letter went out 3 days later. Kent called me the morning he received it. I did not answer. I let it go to voicemail. His message was 42 seconds of sputtering. How he had just been trying to help, how I was being dramatic, how Pamela was very upset, how the family would be embarrassed if this went any further. I listened to that voicemail twice. Then I saved it for the record. Then Pamela called. Her message was smoother, measured. She said Kent had only had my best interests at heart, that I had misunderstood his intentions, that I was putting the family in a very difficult position. She said the word family 4 times in 40 seconds. I noticed she did not say she was sorry. Within 10 days of that letter, the wider family knew what had happened. Not because I had broadcast it. I had said nothing beyond what was necessary to the people directly involved. But that is the thing about what Ken had done. He had made his calls, said his words, removed my equipment, and he had done it while other people were watching. Dolores had heard things. People at the medical supply company had noted the circumstances of the pickup. Happy Path had records. The truth has a way of surfacing, especially when someone has been as thorough as Kent was, because every action he took left a trail. My cousin Vivian called from Charlotte. She is 70 years old and does not mince words. Sharon, I heard what Kent did. I am ashamed of him. I am calling to tell you that. That was the whole call. I thanked her. My cousin Dennis called 2 days later. Quieter than Vivian, more hesitant. He said he hadn't known Kent had done this, that he had always assumed Kent was the responsible one in our family. He used that phrase, the responsible one. I told him what responsible actually looked like, and I described the 200 people who had shown up to my house on a Tuesday afternoon. Dennis was quiet for a long time after that. Kent never apologized. I did not expect him to. People who take the kind of action he took, premeditated, methodical, timed for maximum impact, do not apologize because they do not believe they were wrong. They believe they were strategic. They believe they saw something you couldn't see and that you will thank them eventually when you understand. Kent still believes, I am certain, that I would have been better off in his guest room in Greensboro. He still believes I am too old and too alone to manage my life in my own home. He still believes that my choice to build a community rather than a traditional family was a mistake that he had the right to correct. What he does not have anymore is access. I spoke to Howard Mitchell one more time before closing that chapter. I updated my personal records. I added additional layers of authorization protection to every service provider in my life, my doctors, my pharmacy, my home care file, my bank. I documented my wishes in writing, notarized, and filed with the appropriate parties. I made sure that the next time anyone tried to speak for me without my permission, there would be a paper trail a mile long that said otherwise. Then I went back to Magnolia Terrace, and I had coffee on my porch. 3 months after the surgery, I walked 1 full mile on my own. No walker. A cane for another 2 weeks. And then I put the cane away. Dr. Nguyen said my recovery was exceptional. You had good support, she told me at my follow-up. I did, I said, 200 people worth of it. She blinked. I told her a little of the story. She sat back in her chair and nodded slowly in the way doctors do when they have just learned something they are going to carry with them. I want to talk to you about something that nobody talks about enough. Solo aging. There are an estimated 22 million Americans over the age of 50 who are aging alone, meaning without a spouse, without a partner, without adult children in the home. A significant portion of us are women, and the number is growing every year. This is not a crisis. This is a reality. And like every reality, the question is not whether it is happening, but how you meet it. Here is what I know from 31 years of helping people age in their own homes, and from one Tuesday afternoon in Raleigh when I came home from surgery to an empty house. Loneliness is not the same as being alone, and being alone is not the same as being unprotected. Kent looked at my life and saw a woman with no husband, no children, and therefore no resources. He saw absence and called it vulnerability. He was wrong about what he saw and wrong about what it meant. What I had built over 22 years on Magnolia Terrace was not a lesser version of a family. It was a chosen family, and chosen families, the kind built from decades of showing up for other people, of going to church, of being present in your neighborhood, of doing your work with integrity, of being the kind of person people call when they need help. Those families are real. They are reliable. And when it counts, they show up. 200 people showed up. Now, I also want to be practical with you, because this is not just a story about community. It is a story about legal protection. And if you take nothing else from today, please take this. If you are aging without a spouse or adult children, you need a medical power of attorney assigned to someone you trust, a friend, a neighbor, an attorney, anyone other than the person you are worried about. You need it signed, notarized, and filed with every medical provider you use. You need your service providers, home care agencies, pharmacies, doctors' offices to have authorization protocols that require your explicit consent before accepting any third-party instructions. You need to tell them this directly. Ask the question, what would happen if someone called you and said they were my family and I had changed my mind? If they don't have a clear answer, find a different provider. You need an elder law attorney's number in your phone, not for a lawsuit, for a letter. Sometimes the right piece of paper sent to the right person stops something before it goes further. Howard Mitchell's letter stopped Kent cold. And you need your community, not because you can't manage on your own, you can, but because the strength of your life is not measured by how little you need other people. It is measured by how deeply you are woven into the lives around you. The woman who has 20 people who would come if she called is not weaker than the woman who thinks she must do everything alone. She is wiser. I spent 67 years building something, a career, a home, a community, a reputation for showing up. My brother spent one morning trying to dismantle it. He failed. And he failed because what he was trying to dismantle was not mine alone. It belonged to 200 people who had a stake in it. Beverly Miller still stops by on Tuesdays for coffee. Gloria comes every Sunday after church. She says it's just to check my recovery. But we both know she's really coming for Caroline's pound cake, which someone always seems to bring. Renee and I have started a walking group for senior women in the neighborhood every Wednesday morning at 7, 8 women who walk Magnolia Terrace and 2 adjoining streets and argue pleasantly about everything from local politics to the best way to grow tomatoes. Theodore finished reinstalling my grab bars 6 months ago. He also, without being asked, fixed my screen door and re-anchored my porch rail. He left a note on the kitchen counter when I wasn't home. It said, "The rail was loose. It's fixed now. T." That is what community looks like. Not always dramatic. Not always a crowd. Sometimes it is one man with a wrench and a 3-word note. I did not invite Kent to any of this. I have not spoken to him since Howard Mitchell's letter went out. I hold no rage toward him. I understand him clearly. He is a man who looked at my independence and saw a problem to be solved, and he acted accordingly. The problem for him is that I was not the problem. I was the solution. And I am still in my house on Magnolia Terrace, still drinking my coffee on the porch every morning, still walking my neighborhood, still here. Before I go, I want to ask you something. Is there someone in your life who looks at you, at your independence, your choices, your home, your life, and calls what they see a problem? Someone who is waiting quietly and patiently for you to be vulnerable enough that they can step in? If there is, I want you to drop their name in the comments. You don't have to use their real name. You can call them Mike Kent, because I have a feeling some of you know exactly who I'm talking about. And if you have built your community, if you have your Renee and your Beverly and your Gloria, tell me about them. Tell me what they did, because those stories matter just as much as mine. If this story reached you today, please subscribe. Not for me, for yourself. Because every week, we tell stories about women who refused to be managed, who set boundaries that people said couldn't hold, and who built lives that looked different from what the world expected, and were more real because of it. Next week, I am telling you about a woman named Carolyn, 71 years old, retired librarian in Memphis, whose 3 adult children came home for her husband's funeral and tried to change the locks on her house before the burial was done. What she did, with one phone call and a 30-year friendship, will make you want to stand up and cheer. You do not want to miss it. I'll see you there.